Hello and welcome back to Off the Ball. You are listening to the Nullag na Bon special. I am Sky Sports scholar and Irish Paralympian Ellen Keane, and I am here today with my co-host Ciara McGeehan, and we're going to be talking to two lovely ladies. The first is, of course, one of Ciara's training partners. Ciara, would you like to introduce your training partner?
Yes, I will introduce the Flying Dutch woman from Team New Balance Manchester. This is Jip Vastenberg. She joined our team a year ago, Jip?
Yeah, 1.5 years ago already.
Yeah, 1.5 years. And Jip's my training partner throughout this whole lockdown, and I am excited to introduce her to you and ask her some questions.
And then after Jip, we're going to talk to Ireland's superstar from the Rio 2016 Games. It is, of course, Annalise Murphy. Annalise, thank you for joining us today.
No worries, great to be on. I've been, watching these and also watching you all on social media, so it's actually kind of cool to be like, oh, hello in person.
But first, me and Ciara are going to do what we do best, and it is a Keane and McGeehan Unleashed. So, Ciara, when we do these things, we tend to ask each other some questions, and we kind of end up going down kind of a rabbit hole and end up finding really embarrassing things out about each other. So I think the first time we did this, you asked me if I peed in the pool. Yeah. And then the last time we did this, I learned all about your running endeavors whenever you need to go to the toilet. Yeah. So I'm excited to see where this will go today.
And Jip's laughing because she's a part of that as well.
Lovely. I can't wait to hear about where your favorite spot is.
We have a few.
We do. We have a few regular spots. I can't really disclose them too much. I doubt too many people from Manchester will be listening, but perhaps they will, and they might not be pleased to know that we stop regularly to go to the toilet in these spots.
And this is why we're glad you're not in Ireland.
But yeah, we can certainly give some exciting questions. People probably tune in here for that sport and prowess, and then we end up going down all these different types of subject matters, but that's what it's all about, crack.
Exactly. My first question, Ciara, is just a pretty general question. How was your Christmas?
It was good. I had a really nice Christmas. I managed to get home to Portaferry, which was lovely because I hadn't been home for a good spell. Yip's the same. We all kind of had a rocky time over in Manchester, kind of unsure if we were going to get home. I was lucky enough to get home on my break for my kind of summer, what you would call summer season. I got home for a little bit, but that was me getting home for Christmas, and I don't know when I'll be back, but I had a lovely Christmas at home with my family. I got to go out with my dad and the dogs, and yeah, it was nice and relaxed, and I'm pretty sure I ate my body weight in tinned sweets, so I'm glad to be back in Manchester where there's no celebrations or Quality Street or roses just sitting right by the side of the chair. I think a few people would be like, oh no, those athletes don't touch any of that stuff over Christmas, but I can guarantee you I had pavlova, banoffee, and every form of chocolate going in the McGeehan household.
You make it sound like you just got home and you just kind of gave up being an athlete, but I know that's not true because I remember seeing on your Instagram that you were marking cold with like a stick trying to measure how far a mile is for everyone to run.
Yeah, so I'm very, very happy and lucky to be a goal ambassador, and every Christmas we do the goal mile, well, every kind of Christmas period. So usually people get to do it en masse and all come together, and last year we did it around the GA pitch in Portaferry, the place where I grew up doing my sport. But this year I had to think outside the box and go to a different part of the town where people could be a little bit more distant. So I went out and I marked the goal mile. It was 804 meters out because a mile isn't exactly 1600 meters, and it's actually quite handy, and I'm kind of wondering why I didn't do that sooner, because now there's a perfect 800 meters marked on that road. I should have just kept going to the K and maybe keep marking. I think some people who live in Portaferry permanently now are like, why didn't you just do that? But yes, and maybe I probably relaxed a little with the diet, in the sense of I took more treats than usual, but our coach is pretty firm in that we don't relax too much over Christmas with regards to training. I was training on Christmas Day. I did a session of, I think it was like a 6-mile progressive tempo, which fairly bit me in the backside. But yeah, I was training very hard. I was just enjoying the festivities as well.
You were just delighted to be home overall, weren't you?
Yes, I definitely was. It's always nice being back. And whenever you're from a small town like I am, and anybody who's from Ireland knows how nice the Irish people are, it's always nice to get back. The fire was lit, Mummy was making the dinners, and it's just lovely. You don't get those opportunities as often as you get older, so I like to relish in it.
Very true. In a non-COVID world, sometimes after training, if ever I've like had a really hard session and just I can't be bothered going home and cooking food, I'll text my mom and I'll be like, I'm leaving the pool now, it'll take me half an hour, is there any dinner? And I'll
Oh, you're very lucky. I certainly can't do that. I now don't live in the New Balance Manchester Athlete House, so maybe I should call on them being like, I can't be bothered to cook tonight, but we all have to return the favour if that happens. I wish Mummy McGeehan was close by for me to drop in and get some food. But tell me, how was Denny's Christmas? The new addition to the Keane household?
The new addition, right. So I have Natalia Coyle and Arthur Lanigan O'Keefe to thank for my obsession with Dachshunds. So I met their Dachshund, I think like a year ago now, and just the cutest little dog I've ever seen. And then when all of this madness happened in the world, I was just like, do you know what? I'm going to get a dog. I'm going to get a miniature Dachshund. And honestly, I have fallen in love with him. Now, Kira asked me for him to be here, but he's not here because he's gone for a walk. He was just so yappy earlier that I was like, oh, I can't have him here. Like the apartment isn't that big, so I can't have him here while I'm doing this. But literally, it's just, dogs are great, aren't they? Like I know Annalise had loads of dogs after Rio. She got like three puppies at the same time or something. I remember seeing that. Yeah, but like, oh, his name is Denny. He's the cutest little thing. I like to dress him up in little bow ties, but it's literally like, if anyone is thinking of having kids, get a dog first, because I swear to God, my sleeping routine and pattern is all over the place. Like he'll wake up. I got him, when did I get him? I got him in August, September, and it's January now, and he'll be good at sleeping for like 2-3 weeks, and then all of a sudden he'll be like, no, I like waking up in the middle of the night now. So I'm trying to tackle that at the moment. But other than that, he is perfect.
A little bundle of joy. I know that in the Team New Balance Manchester House, we have a member of the team who is very keen to get a pet. We were all kind of up in the air because that's something I wondered. Like I really want a dog too, Ellen, and I am mad about Springer Spaniels. But with always going away on training camps and being away, and I don't, like, you're quite lucky your parents are close by and they have a dog, so you can drop him into them whenever needs be. We don't quite have that, but I know that Yip has brought a cat litter tray back from Holland with the ambition of getting the team cat.
We need to get one, 100%.
I think cats are fine though, because they kind of look after themselves. Like if I didn't live in an apartment, I probably would have got a cat. I just don't think cats should live in an apartment.
No, they have to go outside and then they just take care of themselves.
Exactly. So you don't really have to worry about it. As long as you have a neighbor or someone who's just going to fill the dish every day, then you're fine.
There are a little bit more maintenance than that, Ellen, a little bit. But I wanted to actually ask you, because I thoroughly enjoyed this year, despite the fact that there wasn't much sport on initially, and then sport started slowly coming back. I really enjoyed a couple of aspects of sport this year. So was there anything in particular that caught your attention, that grasped your attention? Because it's quite unusual for us not to be in the depths of it ourselves. Because quite often if I'm in a normal racing season, I don't see what happens. Whereas I was kind of stayed put a little bit more. So for you, did you notice anything more outside of your own sport that caught your attention this summer?
I think I just got really jealous because like athletics seemed to still be able to kind of go ahead. There were running competitions, you were able to run, you were able to compete, and it was so great to be able to see you do that. But like swimmers just didn't. An international swim league that has only started the past 2 years, and they were able to do it this year just with everyone like in a hotel for 6 weeks, and then they're able to do it over that 6-week period. So it was interesting to watch that, but I kind of got a bit confused because I didn't really understand. For one, Eurosport just wasn't working for so long, and then whenever I went into it, I just couldn't figure out the scheduling. So I didn't really get to see a lot of swimming, and then I didn't really get to do a lot of swimming myself. But I did get to see you. I did get to see Nadia Power do great this year as well. It was really exciting to see that COVID and lockdown hadn't affected her training, so it'll be exciting to see how she's going to compete this year. And then I ended up, because you know the way with COVID, you're kind of stuck with the people that you've been with the whole time. Like, you're not allowed to interact with anyone new. So my bubble has been my boyfriend and my boyfriend's family, and all they do is watch football. And I'm not a football person, but I have watched so much football that even when I go training now, my coach and like a few of the lads would be talking about what's on football, and I'd be turning around and being like, I hate the fact that I know what you're talking about and I know what's going on and I know who's top of the league.
You need to get a fantasy football team now, Ellen, if you know these stats.
Literally, I actually, when the league started back, I was like, I should probably get a fantasy football team, because then it will make it that little bit more interesting. And I know I'm on Off the Ball right now, and there's so many people listening, and they're probably like, why is this girl on the radio? So I'm really, really sorry if I'm annoying you. I just don't get it. I just don't get it.
Well, like, I'm not a massive soccer fan. I thoroughly enjoy watching our girls play, but like, I don't follow football teams necessarily. I know that the guys in Team New Balance Manchester have a fantasy football team going ahead, and I enjoy the banter that they have, seeing who's changed their teams. Yip is a huge sporting fan. She like follows everything, so I kind of just like vicariously look. Sometimes I don't even watch athletics. I'm quite happy to be away from sport, but one sport that always draws me in, and I am so glad that it's being televised a lot more, was the Camogie this year, because I was probably a little biased because my own county were playing, and I was just extremely proud as well of the Ulster teams, because we had Armagh winning the Junior All-Ireland final, Down winning the Intermediates, which was a special moment to watch. I thought that was fantastic, especially beating our neighbours, Antrim, who you always just don't like your neighbours play as much. So it was nice to get to beat them. And then going and watching Kilkenny bring back the All-Ireland for the seniors team as well. And I know a couple of girls that play on that team, having went to UCD and seeing them play. So you kind of feel like a little extra tie. And I think it's wonderful that more female sport is getting on the TV.
Yeah,
really
definitely.
That keeps up. And like, even I don't follow Gaelic quite as much. I grew up playing Camogie, but I do enjoy kind of keeping an eye on the Gaelic, and Armagh did really well. My PE teacher's daughter actually plays on the Armagh team, and she was the person who got me into athletics. So there's a little kind of tie there that I certainly have. So I thoroughly enjoyed that, and I hope that there continues to be Camogie on the TV a lot more, because it means as well, while I'm here in Manchester, I get to watch it, which even if I was at home, I probably wouldn't get to travel to the matches quite as much. And as well, I was going to ask you about, I suppose you had kind of touched on it there, that not much swimming happened this summer. So it was hard for you guys. Like, I often think that I come on and I talk about other people's sports and Camogie a little bit more than I do my own sport in athletics. And I think athletics people are like, come on, Ciara, athletics is your sport. Give athletics a little plug. And I think athletes did fantastic this year on the track. Like, you had spoken about Nadia, who did absolutely brilliant. And I'm really glad to see Nadia kind of take another little step up. And I really enjoy the fact, and I know I talk to you at large whenever we're on our runs, about how it really brings each other on whenever other people in your own country are starting to kind of raise their game. And I thoroughly enjoy the fact that, like, I have to watch my back. There's going to be people nipping on my heels, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is going to be good. I want girls that I fear going and racing at a national championships, that I'm like, I need to be on my A game today. And it's great to see Nadia doing that. And as well, had the two Flanagan twins do fantastic over the 10K, which was brilliant. These are up and coming stars in Irish athletics, and watch that space, because they're going to be reaming out over our cross country team as well. Like, I'm going to be battling for my place in that senior cross country team in the future for sure. We had as well, I tip my hat, and I know this is all about girls, but our marathon fellas are doing absolutely exceptional as well, which is just amazing. I think it's a prime example of how when one person raises their game, everybody does. I think sometimes it just takes one person to go and run a certain time, break in 2:10 in the marathon, and then now we have an influx of Irish men who are doing absolutely fantastic over the marathon. So watch those spaces. So is there anything that you would say watching in swimming? Because I know nothing about your sport, so who
definitely. I've seen we had the opportunity to do a few internal races, which was really, really good. It was just an opportunity for a few of us who are hopefully either going to go to Tokyo or going to go to Paris, have the opportunity to do a bit of race practice, get the racing suit on. It's so funny. The only ever time that I've ever really, really, really contemplated retirement is whenever I have to get a racing suit on, because you girls don't understand. Like it takes about half an hour to get this tiny little suit on, and then you're so uncomfortable. It works perfect while you're racing, and then you get out and you have to take it off, which takes another like 20 minutes. It's like Spanx. Like if you're anyone getting married soon who's looking for Spanx, just buy a racing suit and it will suck you in. Like that's what they do. But yeah, it was really exciting to see how people were racing despite the pools being closed, because unlike you guys, like running, you can kind of run anywhere, just run around in your 5K circle just constantly. But the pool is completely different. Like a lot of swimmers are out of the water for weeks on end, and we saw who did I see in particular? Niamh Coyne. She's an up-and-coming breaststroker. She actually won a medal at the Youth Olympic Games, I think in the 200 breaststroke. So she's been swimming really, really well. It's really exciting to see. She's getting closer and closer to that Olympic qualifying time. I know in swimming, they have a specific time and date that they have to swim, an event that they have to swim that time at. Unfortunately, because of COVID, that was going to happen at Irish Nationals, but in April last year, but that got cancelled. So no one actually got the chance to step up and try and qualify. But I've been watching her and seeing her getting closer and closer to that time. So that's really exciting. Shane Ryan and Dara Green were fortunate enough to be representing Ireland at the ISL. So they were away, I think it was in Hungary, and they were away for 6 weeks and were competing. And it was so good to see them up against the rest of the world and still being able to compete. And just Shane in particular, Dara didn't get to race as much as Shane, but Shane, each time he got in and he raced, he just kept getting faster and faster. And it's amazing to see that even though you've been out of the pool, as long as you want it and you're kind of under that pressure and you're excited to race, anything is possible. There's a few young lads from up north. Jack McMillan, I think, swam the other weekend and just did an incredible time, which will be really exciting to see if he can qualify. I know we're talking about girls here. And then Danielle Hill, she is Ireland's fastest ever 50-meter freestyler. So 50 meters is the fastest stroke there is in swimming. So she is Ireland's fastest swimmer at the moment. So it'll be really exciting to see if she can hit that qualifying time. I think they're looking to have the nationals again in April. So hopefully we'll see a few girls qualify now in April.
Yeah, a good few Ulster people up there.
They're incredible.
Quite well.
They just don't stop, and I think their pools might have been closed longer than the ones down south were. They're so strong and so unbeatable. And especially I follow Danielle on social media, and during lockdown she did like a 24-hour challenge where she exercised for 24 hours, and I was watching it being like bizarre. Like I'm a swimmer and I can hardly like function on land without falling over. here she is not being able to access the pool and just pushing herself to do a 24-hour challenge when she actually has nothing to train for at the moment. So it was incredible to see her kind of keep her motivation going throughout lockdown.
Yeah, certainly. And if you want to follow somebody that'll give you a laugh, definitely follow Danielle. She's hilarious. I love watching her trying to do her handstand walk, and she's improved so much. Sometimes it's quite nice, like as you said, seeing how other people who have got a chance to maybe go and race, because it meant a lot for me to be able to race this summer and to be able to run 2 national records. And I think it probably meant a lot to other athletes too. Like I spoke to Nadia because we were chatting just about racing and how we both feel about traveling and the situation that we were in. And I think it gave everybody else a little boost that, like, you know, maybe it's not an ideal prep for us all this year, but we have the opportunity. And as you said, if you have that drive, you can keep going. As another thing that I noted down, because I was like, I wanted to ask you about swimming, and I was going to ask about how like swimmers retire quite young, but you also mentioned about the swimming costume, because I was like, we both compete in quite minimal clothing. Like I'm basically running around the track in a glorified.
Sometimes you ask your question. What is that about?
And
why are you literally running around in your underwear?
I know, but I don't know why that's, I suppose it actually is quite comfortable. But I never train in those type outfits, like, well, maybe because it's not blooming warm enough in Manchester or in Ireland. But like as a woman, and I think it's probably quite good, and like this will tie into as well, like what I'm going to chat to you about. Like sometimes you can feel quite self-conscious in the kit that you go into, because you kind of like feel, I speak for myself here. I'm like, I feel I have to be in a position where I'm comfortable looking at myself in my crop top and shorts before I go out and I run around a track in that. And that's not even any perception that somebody else has put on me, because I'm quite lucky in that sense. I don't feel I've ever received any negative criticism with regards to my body, but that your own mental aspect towards your own body, and as well, like maybe it's your body shape. And look, we have 4 fantastic sportswomen here, all different body shapes, all different sizes. Ellen, I know you're such a strong advocate of loving your body, and that's absolutely fantastic. And I know that I struggle with it. I know that Yip has in the past, and we talk really openly about it in our team. And I think it's something just for us to chat about, because I think girls and women will look at us and think, what do you have to be insecure about? But sometimes it's those little demons in your own head, and they're completely silly, and but they can still be tough. And like little things as well, it might not even be like, am I lean enough? Like I worry about body hair as well. This is Ciara going on these weird tangents. But like Ellen, you're in a swimming costume all the time. Like, do you have any tips as a swimmer? Like
about body hair. Is this one of those weird conversations that we're gonna have?
Yes.
About how I maintain,
and then Ellen's like,
hair.
Ciara, can you not keep this for off air? But you know, like quite often I think there's things that we don't talk about as sportswomen, that like younger girls who are like, okay, I have to run about in briefs. Like I never wore running briefs a lot of the time, because I was kind of conscious of like bikini lines and things like that. So I always, like anybody who's known me in the past, I only started wearing running briefs last year. It was the first time I put them on me. I stepped out in the 800 in a place called Bern in Switzerland, and that was it. And my teammates are like, she's in briefs.
I'm shocked.
I feel like that's like, because when I know age group boys a lot would wear the jammers, which are kind of swimsuits to their knees, and then they progress to speedos, and whenever they progress to the speedos, it's like, oh, they progressed to the speedos. And girls, yeah, we have tiny little swimsuits, but boys also have tiny little speedos to be wearing. So I think it's a universal body image kind of issue that we could talk about. But body hair in particular, how will I talk about this? Yeah, it was something that I honestly was really self-conscious of growing up as well. I would be more of a hairier person than, because I have quite dark hair, so like I don't have light hair. I'm not gonna lie and pretend that like I have silky smooth skin all the time, and
I have
nobody
no hair
does.
from my eyelashes down and hairless.
And like it's weird to think that that is the ideal image that people have in their head. It's like silky smooth all the way down, but like that's not realistic. That's a child's body. That's not a woman's body. That's not a teenage girl body. That's literally a baby's body. And I know it's going to take a while for girls to kind of accept this, but it is something that I did struggle with, and I think it was just staying on top of shaving for me. But also having the knowledge, now that I'm older, I know that like, I think when you're a teenager, it all just happens so quickly, and you're like, where did all this come from? What do I do? But it slows down a lot when you're older. So having that little bit of,
yeah, the confidence as well, like, it doesn't matter, like it's fine.
And literally it gets to the point where you're like, I actually would prefer to nap for an extra 20 minutes than to get up early and have a shower to shave my legs. Like I just spend my time in water. I cannot be bothered to spend that extra little bit of time in water to shave my legs. And then of course when it comes to racing, that's when you see the big difference of when you do shave your whole body. So if you don't actually shave in the lead up to that, and then you shave down before you race, you're actually going to have a better effect. It's going to have a better effect on you mentally and physically than it is if you are constantly shaving. So there's a little bit of race tactics to it as well.
So there is truth behind that like makes you much more aerodynamic in the water.
Yeah, it's weird. It's just you just feel so like you're gliding through the water. Obviously, it works on guys a bit more than it would girls, but depending on how hairy you are, could have even better effects on you.
Yeah,
But body image in particular, I know this was a topic that you wanted to talk to Yip about. So I think maybe that's where we could get Yip more into the conversation.
Yes, definitely. And that's just a prime example of the random stuff I throw at Ellen. She's like, Ciara.
I have had laser, okay, but laser doesn't work.
But yes, I wanted to chat to Yip because I think Yip is a fantastic role model for young girls out there, because she's come through that progression of being in a position where her own perception of her body, it was distorted in a lot of senses, and Yip's come through that, and it's been a tough journey, and it's a journey that you're still traveling, Yip, by all means. But I'm not sharing anything secretive about Yip. Yip's spoken really openly about this in the past, that she had disordered eating as a youngster, and kind of like going through her teenage years in the sport, and it had a real consequence on her physical health and also her performance, because some people kind of see that as benefiting them performance wise, and that it's going to be good. So if you maybe shed a little bit of light and let people know your story, Yip, just maybe how you started in athletics, and maybe whenever these tendencies started to arise.
Yeah, I started really young in athletics. I think I was around 6, and my transition from junior to senior went really smoothly. I became European champion in 2013. The year after, I ran the Europeans for seniors, became 4th. The year after, I qualified for Olympics. So my transition from a junior to a senior went really well. And I think I had my first international competition went in 2011. So I might have been like 16, 17 years old. And like my ambition from a young kid, it's always been, I really want to compete at Olympics. And I started like being a serious athlete in that sense when I was 13, 14. So I've been thrown in the deep end quite at a young age, and by myself, not with any pressure of anyone else. It's mainly my own pressure. And I think from that moment, each year I became more and more serious. And it's just little comments from coaches or people around you, like, oh, maybe you can be a bit more strict in your diet. And then I went to a dietitian, for example, and actually that was the wrong thing for me to do, because it gave me a sort of control over my eating. And I literally had a schedule what I was eating every single day, and I don't think they realized that's exactly what I was eating. So I didn't have any cookies. For me, a sandwich with peanut butter, for example, was a treat, which now I'm like, I almost eat it every day. And if I'm hungry, I just eat a spoon of peanut butter, for example. So it became more and more an obsession. And I got lighter, I got more lean. And by the consequence of that was that I was running faster as well, because it's hard if you're younger. The lighter you are, the faster you move, because you don't have to carry as much weight, and because you're like we say, you're not developed in a way yet. So the lighter are, the faster you go. So it went all really, really smooth. But then I would say after 2014, when I qualified for the Olympics, actually, I was really unhappy. I was running well, but behind the scenes, for example, I didn't live at home since I was 16, and I was on FaceTime a lot with my mom, and every day I would be crying, and I was, really signs of depression and stuff like that. And running was going well, but behind the scenes, it was not going well, and that made me like injury postponed. So my tendons always hurt, and Achilles, and I think I've been lucky. I've never really had a bone issue, but I think because I had a strong bone density for myself, I didn't really struggle with that. But being really, really unlucky or unhappy and going to the Olympics but not enjoying it. I can't remember a thing of the whole Olympics. And I think that made me realize, okay, if I continue this way I'm doing now, I'm just don't have the strength to continue running. Meanwhile, I'm like the biggest sport fan there is, and I really love the sport. But that was for me a moment that, like, I really, really need to change.
Yeah, and so that for you, it was less of a performance thing that was the beginning of the cracks. It
Yeah.
was a mood, and I think that's really important for people to note as well, because
Yeah.
I really struggled myself for a period of time with, it wasn't disordered eating, but it was more reduced energy intake, and I struggled to eat as much food. And I find that, like, I was still performing well. Sometimes my performance was to go up and down, but it was more my mood. I was more irritable. I was just tired all the time. Like, my interest in things that usually interest me just dipped. And I know that you'd spoken to us before, Yip, about how you were like, I was crying most days. Yip loves the sport. Like, she's a true, like, I enjoy the sport, I'm good at it, but Yip loves it. She really does. Like, I enjoy being good at it, and I can see myself going into other sports whenever I retire. But she loves running.
Yeah.
And I know there was like little things you've told me about in the past, like, really shocked me, because I didn't have this experience growing up, and thankfully, and I hope that not too many people do, but if any youngsters, young girls or boys really listening to this, identify with any points that Yip's saying, it's to kind of reach out and look for help, because if you nip it in the bud early, then you can try to recover. Like, Yip's lucky that her bone density didn't deteriorate too much, especially in those critical years for a young girl, whenever we're forming bone density, up until like our you could say at latest, I think mid-20s, you're bone forming, and then after that, that's our peak bone density, and we're only downhill from there.
Yeah.
And as women, it's so crucial.
Create more.
Yeah. So for women, it's so crucial that we get those peak bone densities. And I can remember something you said to us, like, sometimes Yip just comes out with something and it like completely wipes me. We were at a training camp in Albuquerque this time last year, and we were having some food, and I remember sitting at the table, me, her, and my coach, and I don't know what I mentioned, and she was like, I think I needed to nip to the toilet, and I was talking about freckle on my leg or something, like, oh, I got a new freckle, and Yip's like, oh, I used to. Do you want to share with people what you used to do?
Yeah. So I have a freckle on my left leg, and I used to measure myself with my hands on my legs, how far I could go up to my leg. And if I go over the freckle, I was fine. And if I went not for my, like, how do you say, if I didn't go far enough, that was for me a sign, oh, I'm too heavy, which is absolutely madness, because it doesn't really matter. But for me, that was a sign. And I don't know how we came up with it, and I said it and I was like, fuck, this is, oh, I can't say that. This is really bad. Like, it's, yeah, I didn't realize how bad it was until I was recovered, actually.
Yeah, and you joined our team, and am I right in saying that you hadn't properly had a menstrual cycle until the year you joined our team, and probably saw myself and Anna in the house, just how much we ate.
I think the first
we were,
when I went into Manchester with my car and I drove in, and the first thing I got in the house was a bag of crisps, and I was like, wow, this is an eye-opener for me, like a bag of crisps in the middle of the day. So yeah, for me, joining a team was the best thing that could happen to me, because we are so open about it, even with our coach. And I think with having 3 and in the past 4 healthy girls in the team, I'm really proud of that, because there are not many like professional teams where there's an environment where we can discuss it so openly and so honest. And like, I think for me, it was my sign to open up about it, also to the media, and really, like, for me, they were so important to open up about it and speak. I think it's so important.
That's really empowering. I have a question. So it's going to be probably parents who are listening to us today. So obviously you are still on your journey to being able to say that you're recovered, or I don't even know if you can say that you're ever recovered from something like this, but what are the signs to look out for as a parent, and what sort of thing would you recommend to try and help maybe their daughter or their son who might be in the same situation?
I think for me, like, the first sign is very obvious. I didn't menstruate for almost 8 years. And I think I went to see a GP in Holland, and I don't know why she said it to me, but my mom went with me, and she said to me, nah, it's very normal for an athlete to not menstruate. It's just the body that's saving energy for your running. And she should have said the first thing, okay, this is a really, really big red flag. So that was the first, and that was only when I was 15. So that's so young, from 15 to 21, 22 even. I didn't menstruate at all, and that's just so unhealthy. So that's the biggest red flag there can be, and it's very easy to measure it because you have it or you haven't it. And the second one, I think for me, so I went to see a dietitian, but for me that gave me so much control over my food, and I don't think that was really good for me at such a young age. If I hadn't gone to a dietitian, I probably would have eaten more because I would have no clue what to do. So I think just being as a parent, being not strict about what she should eat. And for me, like when I was a really young kid, I didn't like any food. But my mom just said, like, look, if you don't eat this, you're not gonna train. And all I wanted to do was training. So I went and had to eat a lot when I was like doing high school. I had 6 sandwiches during lunch break. And then when I was an athlete, I was only eating 2, for example. Like, that's not right. You're training so much. So yeah, I would say just don't let it be so strict and such an issue in the house as a youngster. But most and for all, menstruation. That's like the biggest flag.
Really good advice. Thank you for sharing that as well. I guess we'll move on to Annalise, who's just been patiently waiting. And since we're on the topic of body issues as a female athlete, is there anything that you might have struggled with, or obviously when you're on the boat, Annalise, you're not in a swimsuit or a tiny little underwear shorts that you run in. But is there anything that maybe you struggled with, or that kind of, even if the media made a comment or anything and it got to you, is there anything like that you had to manage yourself?
Yeah, it's I'm able to relate massively to all of this because I've since I was a radial, which was 15, and I'm like 185 centimeters tall, and like I've got a strong build, you know? Like and the optimum weight is like 68 to 72 kilos. And first of all, I couldn't understand, as like a sort of 16, 17-year-old, I was like, how come I don't, you know, how come I'm already heavier than the optimum weight for the laser radial? And so I was like watching what I was eating from when I was sort of 16. But I was never too concerned about body image at that stage. And then it wasn't until I had a new coach coaching me for a while in 2009, and he was like, you have to lose weight or quit. There's no point in you sailing at this weight. And he was like, we'll have a diet competition. Now looking back, wild. What kind of person has a diet competition with a 19-year-old girl?
Yeah.
It was and that was like the sort of the start of like where I kind of struggled with eating, and like a massive amount of guilt if I'd eaten too much, you know, like I need to go and exercise for 4 hours or something like that. And it then I was also quite lucky though that we knew that the London Olympics were probably going to be a windy Olympics, so I didn't need to try and be this 72 kilo person that I had in my mind of, you know, what weight I needed to be. So there wasn't actually huge pressure on me to be the right weight, and I ended up starting to work with Rory, my coach, who he still coaches me now, and he was, you know, not like pushing me about diet and weight the entire time, which made a big difference. But then after the London Olympics, the Rio Olympics were going to be in a light wind venue, and like I struggled so much over those 4 years with people just commenting like, it's going to be light winds, you're a bit big for it, aren't you? Things like that just like, it just like slowly wears you down. And I just was in this like cycle of like, I would feel like I was doing really well with my eating and I'd get really light, and then I'd be like, this is unsustainable how I'm eating, and then I'd go and I'd gain weight again, and like, you know, 4 months of hard work I'd like undo in 2 or 3 weeks, kind of on this roller coaster. And eventually, about a year out from Rio, I started working more with Ronan, my nutritionist, and he just really helped me like being about like consistency and, you know, being like really happy if I lost like 0.2 of a kilo a week, not like trying to lose like 3 kilos one week and then gain 3 kilos the next week. And but it was still like really hard for me. I had to be really light for the Rio Olympics. And the thing that I found the hardest was people telling me at the Rio Olympics or beforehand, you're looking so fit, you're looking so lean, like we've never seen you this fit before.
Yeah.
And
Oh
I
my
was probably
God.
the least fit I'd been in 4 years because I'd had to reduce all my training. Because it was important for me to be lighter for the Olympics. So I'd reduced like sort of my aerobic training so I wouldn't have to eat so much. And I'd like look at people and I was like, you should never like discuss with people that they're looking, you know, their body size. I was like, this is probably the least fit I've been. I was like, I know I have a purpose to get to the Olympics, and then after that I can go back to like eating normally and like enjoying good food again. But it's yeah, I think it's across all sports. It's you know, it's just like for everyone it's a struggle like in that. But yeah, it's definitely, as I've got older, I've definitely become wiser with it all. But when I was younger, I was very easily triggered.
That's mad. I never knew any of that about you. And like, I just see this happy girl who just performed amazing in Rio, and I never even considered that people are just constantly reminding you of you have to be light, you have to be light, and all of these things. And it's just amazing the power of language. And like,
Mm.
once you get into someone's head, you just have to be so careful about what you say, because once you get into someone's head, it could kickstart a number of events that aren't necessarily going to help their performance at all. And did your parents at all know about the coach who wanted to do a diet competition with you?
I don't know if I ever mentioned to that, but like they always knew that, you know, they knew how much how hard I found it. And like there was like a few times where I'd just go to my mom, I was like, oh, this is just too hard, I just want to quit. And it wasn't because I love everything about my sport. I love the racing, sailing, I love doing all my like gym work, you know, fitness work. I love everything. The only thing that I hate is that I'm like the wrong size for the boat. Like my natural body weight is like not the right size for the boat. And that's like, it's always like whenever I'm finding things really hard, it's because I'm just like, oh, I just don't know if I have it in me to like it's also I love food as well. Like my favorite thing to do is to cook. So that probably, you know, it doesn't help that like I'll spend all day thinking about what I'm going to cook for dinner.
Oh, we are like that.
We're all like that. It's so tough, Annalise, because I was well aware that like Rowan had weight categories, but I didn't realize that in sailing boats that there was an optimum weight either. For I kind of just thought like, look, the wind's there and it blows you. And clearly there's an awful lot more, because that's one thing whenever I was chatting to Ellen, I was like, I know nothing about boats, but I've been really intrigued to know, because I'm like, when it comes to sailing your boat, like how much of it like is, I'm like, how much of it is luck if a gust of wind comes, or am I just completely naive here and I'm like, there's so much more skill because you can clearly read and harness the natural force of the wind in a way that I couldn't even comprehend. So how, like, explain to me, do you have to look at the weather coming in? Do you know exactly where the wind will be coming from, or can you feel it and you try to move, or is it about like not being in somebody's draft? Or
Yeah, it's about like so many different things, like understanding what the forecast is going to be that day, also understanding the venue. Like different places the wind is different because of geographical features, whether it's mountains or tidal features, you know, stronger tide in certain parts of the race course, like weaker tide in other parts, and if that will help you or hinder you. Other boats, you know, having to deal with the other 70 boats that are trying to mess you up and have a good race themselves. And it's and then being able to like physically make the boat go fast also. So it's kind of like playing a game of chess while sort of, you know, exercising at the same time. And it's all that there's like a lot of my like strength training and like physical training that I do, and the reason I do so much of it is so that I can be at this like level of fitness where I'm able to just be thinking about what's going on the race course and what the other boats are doing, and not just be sailing the boat in a world of pain, which is when even when you are fit enough, it can still be a world of pain. But like the fitter you are, the easier it is just to make the boat go fast without having to think about it, and the more you can think about what's going on around you. And definitely in sailing, there's like a little bit of luck, definitely, you know, in events, but because it's ran over 6 days and you do 2 races a day each day, it's to make it that the person who comes out at the end is normally the person who's been consistent across those 6 days. So, you know, you're not going out one day and winning the race and then the next day going out and coming last. It's the person who's able to deal with potentially over a week, you know, you'll get different weather conditions. So the person who's able to deal the best with all the different weather conditions, and yeah, and also be able to deal with getting like those unlucky breaks and not like, and you know, do the best that you can out of that. And then also when you get that lucky break, being like, yeah, I'll take that, thank you.
So you know, not only need to have what seems to be the core strength of an absolute champion, because whenever I'm watching you on your boat, I'm like, it just looks like you're in a constant sit-up position, hanging off a boat. Oh God, Annalise's core must be like a rock. That you do that autonomously as you're sailing. You also need to be an expert in like geography, because you need to know how to read the land, read the water, read the waves. Amazing, Annalise. There's something else.
It's fun though, because you can always just be like, when things are going bad, you're like, okay, I just need to try and outsmart everyone here. You know, there's sometimes there isn't an option, but a lot of the time you can somehow sort of save yourself in a race by just actually sort of calming down for a second and trying to like outsmart people.
And just try and think more clearly. I think that's one thing that as an athlete, you spend your whole life training and preparing for an event, and then sometimes when you get to an event, you're just so distracted by all of the noise that actually what you just need to do is to just take a deep breath and trust that you know what you're doing.
Yeah, if that's not a lesson in life either, Ellen, I don't know what is. That clarity that you just need to relax, let all of the noise on the outside dampen down, and focus on the stuff that you've trained to do, because all of us train so hard to be where we are, and you hope that you reap those rewards. And I think like I'm so proud to be able to chat to 3 amazingly strong women, and as well the type of women that empower each other. So I think that's amazing, and I want to try to go sail sometime, Annalise. I live by the sea.
Yeah, Annalise, I think we need to end the show on a lighter note, because I think we did get through some pretty heavy stuff. We got through some topics that I didn't realize we were going to go through. Beforehand, me and Ciara were just chatting about what we wanted to talk about, and I was like, let's just ask Annalise about boats. We didn't even realize that we were gonna talk about weight and all those things. So Annalise, do you have a favorite boat?
Do I have a favorite boat? Oh, like I say sort of for fun, I'd sail this boat, a foiling moth. It's a hydrofoil boat, which is so much fun because it's really fast and it's on hydrofoils, so it goes much faster than the wind speed. So if the wind speed, there might only be 12 knots of wind speed, but the boat is able to do 20 knots because it creates its own wind because you start going so fast. So that's really fun, but it was also really scary all the time. I would always come in being like, I nearly died today. Yeah, and sailing like on a big boat with a lot of people is a load of fun as well, because you can just kind of have the crack with everyone, and everyone's got a job. And big boat sailing, sort of, it's not quite as serious as Olympic sailing. Like it's just as important, like about, you know, the barbecue and going and like meeting for chats afterwards as the actual racing. So I think that's I'm going to become like, after the Olympics this year, I'll be like, okay, I'm going to like retire to like enjoyable big boat sailing, where like the most important part of the day is like if you're going to have a barbecue or not.
Watch this space. Annalise is going to be driving a cruise soon. I think one thing that I've kind of taken from this Zoom, which is different from like if we were in studio, we might be able to see everyone's face, but it's whenever we've been talking about our sports, everyone has just been smiling, everyone has just been happy. And I think despite all the like ups and downs that there are in sport, or even throughout the year of the madness that's been going on, it's just to make sure that you're happy and that you're enjoying what you're doing. And if you're doing that, then you're doing something right.
Definitely.
Amen.
So I would really like to thank the three of you for coming on. We had, of course, Annalise Murphy, we had Ciara McGeehan, and we had Ciara's training partner, whose name I can't pronounce.
Yep, Fastenberg. It's a hard one.
Yeah.
It is. It's a hard one when you're terrible at names. Thank you very much for coming on for Nullig Navan and Off the Ball. Back to you in the studio.